Had I known everything I'm about to go over in today's video, I would have reached the highest ranks in Valorant in less than half the time it actually took me. And the first thing I wish I knew sooner would have been to play exclusively with sensible players. What I mean when I say sensible are players who are able to give themselves criticism as well as take it. Because a long time ago when I played in both Platinum and Diamond, I would often duo queue with a guy I really liked. However, every time we lost a game or he went down in a round, he would blame something other than himself for him losing a duel. Often saying things like the other team is so bad that they're super lucky, or that he was straight up the unluckiest player. And what was interesting was that whilst playing with this individual, my improvement was incredibly slow. But then one day I started playing with a player who had the completely opposite mentality. He would say things like "my bad" if we lost a round, instantly saying what he should have done differently almost instinctively when dying, and generally just being very objective in whether he was the one making a mistake or not. The way he thought about the game and his attitude towards it also helped me become drastically better, as he influenced me to be more honest about my mistakes. Whilst playing together, we would easily climb the multiple ranks a month, and that was all thanks to just one simple mentality shift. Secondly, in the past, I often gave up if the team I was playing against was way better than our team, and my team also more or less did the very same thing. The reason I didn't fully try in these scenarios was because of the fact that I knew there was no chance of us winning, so I just wanted to get it over with. However, one day I thought about the fact that playing against players that are drastically better than me must be the most effective quality practice I can possibly get. And after having that thought, I always tried my heart out, even though we were getting destroyed. What this resulted in was still losses. However, instead of not getting anything out of those games, I extracted tremendous amounts of improvement from them, due to the fact that playing against players of that high caliber really made me understand what plays I could and could not go for. If I made a bad play, I would always instantly get punished. So I needed to think hard and make great plays. Over time, trying against these phenomenal teams made it so that my natural way of playing developed into a way higher level. To add on to that, something I wasted an embarrassing amount of time on was not practicing upon the correct fundamentals. Some of the correct fundamentals in Valorant are learning to shoot only a few bullets when taking duels, resetting and shooting a few bullets again, rather than always spraying. Not having predictable movement in terms of always crouching as soon as you fire your gun is another one, and peeking angles with confidence and not slow walking angles is also a fundamental you must learn. Unfortunately, I made all of these plays time and time again when I began playing the game, and had somebody just taught me those three things and that is the right way to go about practicing, I would have saved tens of hours and progressed much faster. In the beginning of me grinding, I also didn't watch a lot of pro players at all. I enjoyed playing rather than watching people on Twitch and YouTube. However, as soon as I started watching players who competed at the highest level play, I learned so many new smart ways to go about playing the game. The main things I learned was how to actually use utility, as that has always been a weak point of mine. Now, I do not recommend watching professionals play actual tier 1 matches, because those games aren't really comparable at all to playing ranked in any rank really. Instead, watch them when they play ranked, see what kind of plays they go for, how they use their utility, and what kind of comms they give to their team. By watching a little bit here and there, you can get so many nuggets of knowledge that ultimately will help you become a better player. Now, if you want to get as effective practice as possible, you must get out of your comfort zone. Specifically, what I'm talking about here is players not claiming space after having planted a spike due to the fact that they think they can just play from a few different angles, hide and win the post plant. Now, don't get me wrong, in a 5v5 scenario, if you have a relatively good setup with your team, playing time, being patient and holding angles is a good play. But a lot of people think that in, for example, 2v3 situations, that they can play the exact same way. Do not do this. When you're left in a disadvantage, be confident, get out of your comfort zone and play aggressively even when you've planted a spike. Being the player on the team who makes game-winning plays and takes the necessary risks when it's obvious that, objectively speaking, that is the right play, will make you infinitely better than the players always playing within their comfort zone. The one extremely negative thing about this though is that in the lower ranks, if you make this play and fail, you'll get shouted out loudly by your teammates. They'll say, "What are you doing?" call you terrible, and maybe even ask why you're throwing the game, when in reality, you're trying your hardest to achieve the opposite. So just be ready for those negative comments, and don't take it to heart. The players throwing out all kinds of hyper negative comms won't make it anywhere near as far as you. Another exceptionally important tip that fits into what I just said is understanding that a great play can go badly. For some reason, this is very hard to recognize, also for me, because surely if you go down in a round, you did something wrong, right? Well, actually, this is not always true, and developing the skill of understanding whether you made a good play or not, regardless of outcome, is one that will take you to the highest ranks. Let me give you a few examples. Let's say you've got a Fade on your team, and she's got an ult. As soon as Fade ults us site, Reyna goes in with a flash, and you push aggressively with them. When making this push together with your team, you get one-tapped. Does that mean that under those circumstances, that play was bad? Well, of course not. The execution of that play was simply not done to the highest standard. However, you made the right play. So in that round, if you have the skill I'm talking about of objectively knowing whether a play is good or bad, regardless of you going down or not, you'll know that you made the 100% correct play. You just need to fine-tune your execution a little bit for next time. A much worse play would have been to have wasted time, gone in after the fade ult was nearly done, and then go down. Now that would have been bad. Another common example is when you're playing clutches. Let's say you hear one player coming from a spot you can quickly peek and make an aggressive play on, and you hear that the two others are coming from a different angle, and they're just far enough away to the point of you being allowed to take that one-on-one duel. Even if you go down in that one-on-one duel, you'll have made a great play. This mindset and way of playing can be annoyingly hard to adapt into your way of playing, but I'm telling you now, if you don't, you'll be wasting countless hours just like I did. Tons of wasted time just because I had the mentality that me going down meant that the play I made was bad, when in reality, I often made fantastic plays. I was just a few hours of experience away from executing them to perfection. Something incredibly valuable that gives you the biggest unfair advantage in Valorant is recording your games, deathmatch, whatever, and looking back at how you're playing. By watching yourself play, even if it's in deathmatch, you'll recognize what kind of weaknesses you have. Now, I really enjoy watching back my ranked games and going through every single round when I need a break. I like to think about what I'm doing to a high standard as well as what I'm doing to a low standard. Another thought that always crosses my mind when watching back games is how can I play better off of my teammates? Now, in lower ranks, playing off teammates will be incredibly inconsistent because they're not predictable at all. But already in Ascendant, I'd say, most agents on your team are predictable to a relatively high extent, and even more so when you reach Immortal. The way I like to record my games is simply by using NVIDIA Shadowplay or OBS, and I think watching back one game, which takes me about 8 to 10 minutes to do, can sometimes lead to just as much improvement as playing that very game. This is because I may recognize big mistakes that I didn't even know I was making, and if I didn't go back and watch said ranked game, I would have kept on making those same mistakes for a very long time. Now, if you clip a little bit when playing deathmatch, the only real thing you'll be able to analyze is how you aim and how your crosshair placement and movement is when running around, and that can be super beneficial, especially in the lower ranks. Now, if you're not too keen on spending time and energy on watching yourself back and just want to play, I have another simple thing you can do to improve faster than the vast majority, and that is always making mental notes when you die in a round. In the start of me playing Valorant, I would go down in a round and instantly start spectating what my teammates were doing. I wouldn't for a second think about what I did wrong and what I could have done differently in that scenario in my head. Let me give you an example of how to perform a mental note. You're playing Jet and entering C site on Haven. Once you're in on site, you look towards Garage to try and get an entry frag, but you go down from a player playing backside. When this happens, you must instantly think, what could I have done differently to successfully get an entry frag, or at least not die? In this instance, a simple smoke for backside would have done the job, and if you're able to take mental notes every single time you go down, you will skyrocket up the ranks like very few others. Thanks for watching.